Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Renegade Radio. I have a really great guest on, Coach Cole Fritz. But there are a couple warnings in here. One, there is a little bit of adult language, not a whole lot. But the main thing is that if you are going to listen to this with kids, or maybe even just yourself, just know that there are going to be some triggering topics in here. One of which is self-harm. So just make sure that you know that before you go into this, because you may want to prepare yourself. However, just know that going through the story and listening to Cole, you will find that there is hope. It is a hopeful story. So just hang in there, but just be warned going into it. Other part is we weren't really sure what was happening, whether it was either on my side or if it was on Cole's side with the internet connectivity issues. So you're going to probably see his video a little bit more grainier than normal. That would normally happen. So if you're watching the YouTube or you're streaming the video off of Spotify, you are going to notice that. If you're in the car a lot of times like me and you can't watch the video, or should you be watching the video, the audio still comes through cleanly. And the last thing that I'm going to mention is that at the very end, I have Cole give me his thoughts on something. I'm doing my best to get the audio to come through on that last part, but it does cut out a couple of times. I might have to use AI to kind of adjust and kind of fill in the gaps, similar to Jurassic Park and plugging in DNA into the conversation. If you've not seen that in Jurassic Park or don't know what I'm talking about, this is way past the statute of limitations. Go watch the original Jurassic Park. Having said that, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Renegade Radio. This is season 2, episode 010, featuring Coach Cole Fritz. Just go ahead and just start. Let us know about let's just start from the beginning. Your origin story. Tell us about yourself.
All right. Yeah. So my name is Coach Cole Fritz. I am a personal trainer and soon to be I'm working on opening up a peptide sales company in the sense of like we're going to be helping people who want to get into peptides, and we're going to use labs to dictate on what type of peptides people need, don't need, and how we can help them with either fat loss, energy, recovery, mental capacity, sexual libido, all that type of stuff. So I'm very excited to see what happens with that, and looking forward to that. I've been in personal training like a full-time career since 2014. I got my first certification in 2013 in college through my strength coach. But I've been like coaching people since 2009. So from 2009, 2013, I had no idea what I was doing and a lot of trial and error, but still got people strong. But like in the sense of like actually getting people in shape and stuff, it was a little different. But coming from sports side, it's like it was never about that, right? It was just about getting people strong. I guess if we want to like who I am and like how it came to be and like why I wanted to be a trainer, we'll kind of go back to the beginning. I was born and raised in Colorado, grew up in Colorado Springs. Growing up, was the fat kid, right? And that was, I think, a great experience to have because it taught me how to do other things that, quote unquote, fit people never had to deal with. Like, actually, had to build a personality because, like, it was either you be funny or you just be big and strong. And so I was like, I had to be funny. And then I just learned how to kind of cope with life that way. And I struggled with depression a lot growing up. I want to say around 6 when it was like I started doing self-harm and stuff to myself. It wasn't like extreme, but it was more like, I would hit my head against the wall and always just these issues. And so I started going to therapy relatively young and could never figure out why. And I think if knowing what I know now and looking back, it was probably a mixture of undiagnosed ADHD. Possibly I was diagnosed with ADD when I was younger and, like give you Ritalin, and that didn't help in school because like I would get done with stuff and I'd be bored. I just like wasn't bad at school, but I was just I'd be bored at school. And I just didn't work. I had consumed too much food, too much sugar and like caffeine, but just never worked out just because I was always like, I'm a single child. So like I always like if I'm going to do something, I just do it at home by myself and entertain myself. And as I growing up, depression got worse. Stuff turned from like, self harm to like suicidal ideation. And it got really bad once my parents got divorced I was 14. So that would have been like sophomore year of high school. So I think that is '07, I think. And it was year of '09 is I was going to try to take my life one weekend. But luckily for me, I had my wrestling coach. I had a really bad weekend wrestling, and it was like I was losing to people like I no one should lose to, right? Like I just didn't care. And what ended up happening is just had a really bad weekend over at my dad's house, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna freaking do this. I am so I got a knife. I got my buck knife. I still have it. It's blades like this long, and I was gonna slit my throat. And so right before I did, I took a deep breath, had it up here, and I was just about to do it. I heard God tell me, "Nope, you still have something left to do in this life." And and that was an audible voice. And so I look around and I was like, okay, no one's here. I look at my dog, and when we know our animals have like a voice in our head, right? When like they, quote unquote talk to us, and that was not his voice. And I was like, all right. So I was like, all right, God, you got 24 hours to change my mind, or otherwise I'm gonna come home. I'm gonna figure out how to get into my dad's gun locker and I'm gonna blow my brains out. And so I go to school the next day, and I had a meeting with my wrestling coach, and he shares his testimony. And it was an intense testimony, and I was like, okay, I'm not alone in how I feel. And he was like, well, do you want to come to Jesus? And I was like, yes, I want this. I want life. I want to not feel the way I feel. And that is start of my like faith journey, and then started like my upward climb to like actually wanting to live and be in life and have life. And that was 2009, January 26th of 2009. So I just celebrated, what year is that? That's like 17 years, right?
17, 18 years. Yeah.
Yeah. 17, 18 years. And like, dude, it was life changing. And then I started getting discipled by one of my buddies, who I wrestled the football with. Him and his family are part of the Navigators, or were now they're some of them are Navigators now. They're in a different ministry. And
Hold on, can you, go ahead and explain navigators because in the audience, there are also non-believers, so for us, we'll know.
Navigators are a ministry who kind of like I'm trying to think what other people might know. Like if people know who FCA is, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So they're just another group ministry where they come in and they can either go to your high school, your college. They also have like adults, and they come in and share Jesus with people, depending on who the person that's in that ministry, like who they go talk to. So like for them, all three of the boys were football and wrestlers, and so that's how I got into that. And so like we had Bible study, and they teach you how to be a disciple maker. And so they teach you about the Bible, they teach you who Jesus was, and like how to go out and make disciples. And so basically kind of like a leadership ministry. And so I got taught like who Jesus was, and like how to share the gospel with people, and that's kind of like who they were. And it was very beneficial for me because it's like, oh, there's other people out there that are dealing with the same stuff. It's just no one was talking about it back then, right? It wasn't in 2009. We don't have like what we have now, where guys can talk about like, oh, I go to therapy, or I go do this or that. It's now it's more open, but back then we didn't have stuff like that. It's like you just had to suck it up and deal with your emotions. And I couldn't talk to anyone because I can't tell my mom what's going on, because not that she wouldn't help, but it's just like she wouldn't get it. And then she's going to feel like it's her fault. And then, I'm not going to talk to my dad because I didn't have a good relationship with my dad at the time. So it was just one of those, like, I felt like I finally had brothers in this. I had family, right? Once your parents get divorced, it just feels like you don't have the thing that held stuff together. But in all honesty, I think it was great. because it kind of built me up to who I am now and how I look for um, support and how I try to build support in my community with people. So I went to college, Western State College, Colorado. My original plan, right, since I didn't want to be alive, I didn't know what to do, right? I didn't know what I wanted to do, go to college. I didn't want to know anything. I I told God, I was like, all right, so well, now that I'm alive, I don't know what to do. So I was like, I'm gonna apply to one college or I'm gonna go into the military. Because I was like, you gotta do one or the other. Back then, just because like there wasn't the entrepreneurial stuff wasn't on my mind. My family um not really entrepreneurial. And so I was like, okay, so we'll go to school. Got in, went up to Western State. Before I got up there, I was working at Sam's Club. I was a cart guy. So I take carts seriously. So if you don't put your cart back, I will judge you and your whole family for that, and it's justified. And one of the girls there, she was a coworker's wife, and she's like, "Yeah, I went to Western State," and I was like, "Cool." And she's like, "You need to go to this church," and I was like, "Okay, I'll go to that church." And that's all I knew about Western before I went up there. And so I go up there. uh, I got recruited to play rugby by some of the guys from my high school because they're like, "Oh, you're going up there, dude. You should come play rugby with us." Like, okay. So I got into the rugby club. I went up there for law enforcement was my focus, sociology of criminal justice with a psych minor. And freshman year was crazy, man. Because I I got into rugby, but then I also got into church. The church was awesome. And as I'm going through life, navigating stuff, I'm just learning. I'm enjoying life because I feel like I'm finally free of household stuff that I had to deal with between mom and dad. And, it's just like I could be me. I could learn who Cole was and like what God had for me during that time. And freshman year of rugby was awesome. I don't remember what we did or, the scores and stuff, but like I just remember like I was like, oh, cool. It felt like brotherhood, right? Because like in football and wrestling, you had companionship, you had all that stuff, and that's what I was looking for when I went to college. But then, like as I got more into rugby, the more I was like, I don't want to be this type of person, right? Because those guys like to party and do all this stuff, and I never did. And so, yeah, just got into lifting more while I was up there, and just had to learn on my own, like what to do, what not to do, reading books. And, back in the day, we didn't have influencers, thank God. But like I just watched videos of the bodybuilders I liked and I got really into that. And then I found one guy, his name's Antoine Valiant. He's a Canadian bodybuilder, but he was getting coached by John Meadows. So people don't know who John Meadows was. He was like one of the best coaches to come out of like thousands to mid 2015s. Don't remember when he died, but he died from heart failure. But he was like my biggest mentor growing up because like he was just how he talked about training, how he talked about lifting and how to think about things and like nutrition, all that stuff. And so like that was like the one first big person I learned from. And then this was like all freshman year. And then sophomore year, I got invited for summer camp to do a navigator's summer leadership retreat where you go up to the Snow Mountain Ranch YMCA in the Rocky Mountains, and you do. This is I always forget the name of the town. It's up in the mountains. Snow Mountain Ranch YMCA. It'll come back to me probably later. And you learn how to be a leader. While you're like going, you're doing your summer job. And for me, I was gonna be an RA that next year. So I decided to be an RA at summer camp. So basically I'm babysitting everyone who's like the same age as me, slash like older people, make sure people aren't getting the shenanigans and all this and that. And just make it basically it was just like concierge service for uh the ranch. And it was really cool because you just got to go around and serve and do all these different things and learn how to share gospel with people who either were up there for Christian stuff or not. Made a lot of friends from they have exchange students from like Taiwan out there. That was like the main group of people that came out there. And so I made a lot of friends from Taiwan, and they gave me a nickname, Big Bear, during that time. So like it was really cool just to like share life with people and talk about Jesus with them. And that's kind of when I just got into like my own is like, okay, I'm good at talking to people. I love being around people. I love culture. I'm just learning stuff from people. And during that summer, I had a really bad like mental relapse. And like I just wanted to like I don't know where it came from. I don't know why. And there's this one night I was walking and I was just like, man, if I could find a cliff, I would jump. And like and I tell people I don't know why. And we'll get to like the why in a couple minutes. So I go on this walk, middle of the night, moon's out, like bright as day, moon's out. And it was probably like just one of the best nights of just walking and talking with God. I'm like, God, why am I here on this earth? Why am I struggling with so much with like my self-worth and all this and that? God's just like, man, just you need to learn that you are loved, regardless of how you feel about yourself, but you just need to learn that you are loved by me and by others around you. And like the stuff that you feel is not true. And yeah, that was just it was a crazy night. And then I go back and I feel fine. I feel like good. End of summer camp, we go back and I share my testimony with my mom and my grandma and my grandpa because they picked me up. And my mom's crying. She's like, "Oh my gosh, why didn't you tell me?" I was like, "Mom, I don't want to hurt you, right? Like that, that's the thing. Like you don't want to hurt the people that they're not responsible for how you feel." And people just don't understand that side of depression is because like sometimes the reason you don't share is because you don't want to hurt them. But if you are feeling like that, you need to share with people so that way you realize you're not alone. Because that's what that stuff does. It wants you to isolate, it wants you to be on your own so that you're not thinking in the proper manner. And that's I feel like some people get taken out by their own hand is because they don't get to understand that there are people that care about you and love you and will be there to support you and help you regardless of whatnot. So go back to school for sophomore year. I'm an RA. I end up starting a men's study in my room. I think it got like 9 guys, and it was like a couple guys that were like adjacent to rugby or just guys that I knew from different areas of school. It was really cool, man, because we hung out, we broed out and just talked about Jesus, and just got to disciple people and lead people, and it was a lot of fun. That year as an RA was not because I had the weed floor. Like we had just legalized Colorado had just legalized weed, but federally it was still legal. So like on campus you couldn't smoke. So I had to deal with that, and it was just a pain in the butt because like I was like, bro, you're not no fun. I was like, dude, I'll get fired, and then like I don't care. I don't want you to be your friend if I get fired. So so we got stuff figured out and it got better. And that year I wasn't playing rugby. I gave up rugby. I texted our coach. I was like, hey man, I can't be doing this anymore. I'm going to be doing this and this. And it was just my conviction got to him was like, dude, you got to get out of rugby. Otherwise you're going to go down a path that you don't want to go down. And I don't feel you need to go down. So I was like, all right. And so gave that up. I would still play like games here and there, but I wasn't committed to the team. Just got really into lifting. That was the first year like I lost a lot of weight. I went from like 280 down to like 230. And it was the wrong way. I just ate a lot of salad and worked out a lot, and I didn't eat enough protein. I got really skinny, but I looked good. But I didn't have a six pack, and it made me so mad. But yeah, then junior year, same thing. I was still leading Bible studies, but then I got into playing music at church and then at other spots on campus. Got my first girlfriend during that time, and I was like, "Yes, God, this is awesome," and everything was good. Uh, and like it was really cool because like I was doing ministry. If anyone's not familiar with like how like younger Christian college kids, you're always looking for your girlfriend to do your ministry with, and then you guys get married and you go do the ministry and go off across the world and you go save people in some random corner of the earth, and that's kind of like the thought, right? Well, that didn't happen. She broke up with me like that summer, and I was like, oh well, this sucks because like we had a mixed Bible study that we ran. We had church stuff that we did stuff together, and I was like, oh, we still got to do this next year, senior year, even though we're not together. And I was like, so that was a big leader impact for me is like, how do you lead even though now you're with someone that you're like, this is not optimal, right? And we got through it. There's no issues and like everything still worked. And I think that was a very important thing to me is like you don't have to be on the same page with someone, but you can still do great things with people who even though you guys are on the same page, right? Like being able to have different viewpoints and life goals and all this stuff and still have very successful stuff happen with people's lives. And senior year is when I realized I didn't want to be in law enforcement because I just saw like the way things were going and how people were going to be treating cops and me being a white dude. I'm like, I looked back then when I had hair, I looked like a very stereotypical white guy. That'd be a cop, like comb over, mustache, all that junk. And I was like, I just don't want to do this, but it's like I still want to serve people. I still want to help people, but I don't want to do it in this capacity where like you might have to shoot a 14-year-old kid that didn't have the same upbringing as me and opportunities, right? So I was like, all right, God, show me something that will lead me to be able to do this. And he's like, all right, you're going to go sell shoes. And I was like, what? Because we had a fair, a job fair, end of year. I walked around and like everything I saw, I was like, well, no one's going to hire me for this because like I didn't have a business degree. Because most of those were big business degrees. But there's a company called Finish Line.
Hmm.
I think they're still around
I
out
think
here.
they are.
The one that I
Yeah.
worked at got closed down at Park Meadows, but I joined them. I was a manager in training, and then so after like a year or so, they move you up to a management position. Then you run a store and blah blah blah. I did that. I moved out to Denver in 2013. That summer is when I got my first certification for training. And the first thing I did out here, um, when I moved to Denver, is I found a church and I got a trainer, and then I just started working. Um, and it was great. It was awesome. Church was good for a bit, until it just felt like they overdid stuff. Like they overwatched what like you did with interactions with like when you're like in co-ed stuff. So like if you and I were talking, say like uh, if you're like female, they would have a leader come in and listen to what you were talking about to make sure like shenanigans weren't happening. Which I'm like, I get it. I'm new, but this was like even after like months of always being there and always they would like always be doing that with everything, which like I get it. It's that's the culture and that's how they run stuff. But I was just like, bro, we're all adults here. And I just like, I don't know, stuff just started getting iffy with me with church. I had some church hurt that, now it's more of a me thing and it's not actual church stuff. It's people. We're all people. And then with the work at Finish Line, man, like when you're in that type of environment, you're just all you do is work and you're not getting paid enough. And you're like, is this, I was like, is this life? Like, is this literally going to be my life? I was like, this sounds horrible. And luckily for me, my trainer at the time, he's like, dude, just become a trainer. You already have the cert and you're already asking all the questions. Or you already know more than most people would ever know. I was like, okay. So I got uh, it's basically the diet, like it's the craft, not craft, Kroger version of like NASM. And so I got that. I got the 2-day cert and I did that. And then try to get on at one 24-hour fitness. That didn't happen. They're like, well, you don't know what you're doing. I was like, well, you guys also asked me questions I would never teach anybody anyway. So I'm like, "Yeah." And then I got onto a different one. So I was at the 24-hour fitness in Maui that was originally, I think, the flagship for Lance Armstrong's like Live Strong
Oh,
thing with 24. But everything that happened with that, they got, turned down and all that. So that didn't happen. So I'm at this 24. This is 2014. Still kind of going to church during that time, but not really. Just because I kind of like I was just struggling with stuff with like God, like why if I'm doing all this stuff, why is stuff not working the way I want it to, right? And notice I say I want versus like what God wanted to, and ended up um doing really good at this 24. I learned a lot. It was I tell everyone it was the quote unquote PT 24 because we had like an older population and all the trainers there were going to go to school for PT and corrective exercise and we're Eric Cressy type guys, mobility wad stuff when it was mobility wad. And it was really cool. Just learned a lot. And dated a girl that I met at one of the trainer things. And she's kind of the reason I walked away from church because like how the way the dating situation going, it was going good. But it's like I had my convictions of like, I'm not going to sleep with someone before I'm married. And she's like, well, I don't want to date someone who I can't sleep with before I'm married because like I want to know if we're compatible. And I'm like, it's not what the Bible says. And so I was like, this is stupid. I was pissed off. I was like, man, this sucks. Like I'm trying to do everything right and I can't. So I was like mad. And that was like during Easter. So literally be like, around this time, right? And so what was that like 12 years ago? And so I walked out of the Easter service and I was like, God, I think I'm done with church for a bit, you know? I'm not done with you, but I'm just done with people. And so that started one side, and then of like my spiritual side. But then business wise, I went independent with my trainer and some of the guys. They opened up a gym, and I worked there, and I doubled my income that just by going over there independently. Just the only downside is I just didn't have the business acumen to keep it going. So I actually had to end up after 2 years going back to a corporate gym But during that time is when I had my most success with body transformation. I had a lot of natural bodybuilding competitors I put on stage, and I tried to get it myself ready, and I had to keep pulling out because it's like I've been still struggling with my weight, going up and down, up and down, up and down. But like the first time I got in shape for a prep, I was like, I think 214. I was shredded, had abs, ab veins, all that stuff. But then like when I looked at my blood work, it's like if I would have kept doing this, I probably would have had a heart attack. So we stepped out of that. And, by this time, I'd been dating around all this stuff and just all this stuff that I was causing the situational stuff. And I was just going from dating person to dating person, ended up dating someone and then kind of quote unquote moved in with her, but still had my own place. But then we broke up, but I'd already left that place. I was like, so I don't tell the story because I wasn't like homeless, like on the streets, but I was technically homeless for like 2 weeks. So during that time, I found a place to live and then, got stuff fixed, getting ready. And then I was back to working at 24, which horrible, hated this spot. It's horrible time, 6 months. It's horrible. Just because like the culture there wasn't good. People thought they were better than they were. Just not my jam. I'm not a good corporate person. I don't like people telling me what to do. And that's when I started. I dated this girl, started dating this girl, and got on stage finally that December of 2017 for bodybuilding. I won like first place in true first time ever novice, which is like, so you never competed, like first time ever type thing. So it was like, quote unquote, like C team, winning the championship for C team. So it was like cool, did good. And then I went to open and stuff, and I got my butt kicked by a guy that said he was a novice, but it's like the guy went pro like after that. So it's like whatever. But it's good. It's fine because it's like I wasn't that good. And yeah, during that time, man, I was just like in and out with like my faith. I actually got down the route of like paganism and stuff because that's when like all the Viking stuff was big, and I was already like studying that stuff when I was growing up, and I was like, oh, I like this stuff. It's kind of let's see if there's some validity there, and then during that time, man, just came very, very angry, very hateful, just not a good person, man. So that was like my personal side, like my mental side. But then like I was super successful with my work. Because I went over, we bunch of us that were at Lifetime got recruited to got recruited from 24s to work at Lifetime. Because my manager, who I knew from my original 24, is like, "Hey, dude, we're all going to go interview with some people at Lifetime. Do you want to come?" I was like, because I trust him, and he, helped me get to where I was. And so half of us went to one Lifetime, the other half of us went to Lifetime down in Parker, and that's where I went, and I was super successful there. I think I had, it was either 2018 or 2019 summer. I had a national champion winner of their fat loss contest. It was think back then it was 60 days, what they called it. So in 60 days, she lost 30 pounds. Yeah. And, this was before GLPs and all that stuff. So it was work, a lot of work on her part. And yeah, we got a national win out of that. And so like she was on TV, I was on TV, and we got interviewed and all these things. And then I started getting more and more success at Lifetime. And I made my first six figures at Lifetime. Now I didn't actually collect that because, corporate takes most of your money, if not all of
Yeah.
it, for the opportunity to learn and have a safety net, which is good. And that's where I learned all my business acumen. And then COVID happened. Fun thing with COVID, me and my girlfriend at that time, we had already discussed breaking up, but I'm one of those, I'm like, no, we're going to work through it and we're going to make it better and blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to prove it to you that, I'm worthy of blah, 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 blah. And I bought a house, closed on the house the day that Colorado went into lockdown, and then I got furloughed the same day. And so I'm sitting there, I was like, great. How do I pay for this mortgage now? And what was worse, we had a roommate down in the basement because I was like, oh, you can come live with me, dude. But he worked at the gym too. So he just got furloughed too. So you got two guys that, aren't making any money. And then my ex-girlfriend, she's still working. It was just like there's turmoil at the house because of that. And she's like, why don't you go work? I was like, government's paying me. If I go bag groceries, I'm gonna lose money. I'm getting paid more not working. And then, still did training underground. And that's where, and I was like, man, I just need to go independent again. But I was like, I can't justify it because I couldn't get people over there because everyone was, freaking about rules and stuff. And it's fine. And then when Lifetime opened back up, I think it was like 3 months later, what Lifetime did is they brought back the highest salespeople. So I was in the first group of 5, and we had to hit a certain number of clients and people so we can hire another 5, and just basically do that every couple weeks or so. And we got that. We had a pretty much is all our people back in, I think, like a month or 2 months. They come back, and the other half, one guy opened up his own gym and took all those people and blah blah blah. That's a whole different story for them. It was crazy, but yeah. And so I stayed at Lifetime for a bit. Uh, I think August 2020, my girlfriend broke up with me, and I was like, "Well, this sucks." Okay, now I have a house, blah blah blah, but she still lived there. And then we got to a point where, yeah, we got to a point. I was like, "Hey, well, you need to leave. This is my house. You know, blah blah blah. You're paying rent." Well, she's like, "Well, she was on the deed. My dumb ass put her on the deed." So, yeah. So this is where God comes back in. God uses this horrible, crappy situation I put myself in, and we had to go through litigation, all that stuff. And basically, I had to pay her out $43,000 to get off the deed of my house, which she never paid anything in. She paid rent. It was on the checks and all that stuff, but whatever. Again, my bed had to sleep in it, and got her off, paid her out. She got off. Then I had another tenant come into the basement. She moved out. And then I was like, crap, it's just me in here. And like, I wasn't making anything at Lifetime because I was going through all that stuff. I created an eating disorder. I was binge eating every weekend because like that's how I dealt with my depression, with everything going on. And so I was like, I gotta get someone in. So I put an ad on Facebook, and this kid, 23. It's like, yeah, I'll move in. My dad will pay, blah, blah, blah. I was like, all right, that's fine. I did all the background. The only thing that flagged was like you got in trouble for some like drug stuff, but he said it was weed. And I looked up and I couldn't find anything. I should have done more research, but yeah, I was like, oh, if it's just weed, it's not a big deal, right? Especially if it's coming from another state, because a lot of states still didn't have legal marijuana. Well, he comes in, turns out this kid's a heroin fentanyl addict.
Oh,
Yeah, so I'm dealing with all this stuff, and I'm like, God, like I had started finally coming back to church around end of 2020, and this was like 21, 22, and I was like, God, what's going on? I'm so over this stuff. Like, what am I doing wrong? And during that time, I started praying for this kid, trying to get these demons out of all this stuff that I was just doing in faith. And it was just really hard, man, because I was just like, God, I don't know what the hell to do. But I had slowly been coming out of like the negative of how I saw myself, what the past relationships had caused me to view myself. And I was like, I just hit this roadblocks. Ended up, sold the house, got the kid out, sold the house, made a bunch of money back. I had made the money back that I had to pay the ex girlfriend out of already just from work. And so I was like, all right, I got this, and again, God's like, nope, you're not done with your process yet. I had moved to another Lifetime, and this is when like crap finally hit the fan again. It would have been like October 23rd, I think, of 23. I had to take a mental health day, man, because like I'm just driving. I was like, if I had a gun right now, I had took all the guns out of my house because I didn't want that kid to get access to stuff. And I was like, if I would have had a gun, I would have done it that day. No, no, nothing. I just would have blown my brains out. I was just like, God, like I went and worked out. Like I didn't talk to anyone. I just didn't know what to do. I was in a men's group during that time. I'm still with them. And they're like, dude, you just sell the house, get out of it. And then you need to go independent. You need to go work for yourself. You need to go build the kingdom for God through what you can do, not through what corporate tells you to do. And I was like, fine. And yeah, got out, sold the house, did all this. And I went independent. That was 24, July 24. Um, and stuff finally started creeping up, creeping up, creeping up, like good. But my mental health it was still shaky because I'd have good days, bad days. I was like, God, I was like, God, I need your help. I got nothing anymore, man. I can't be living around where like, oh, there's a bridge. I might jump off. Oh, hey, someone please push me into traffic. I don't want to be alive anymore. Even though all this, was finally making money again. I didn't have all this negative stuff. And that's when, because I was getting into real estate, like listening to real estate, entrepreneur stuff. I was just listening to stuff because I wanted to learn business because I had learned business during COVID through my, it was an online course because, you couldn't meet in person, but it was an online business coach. And that's how I went really successful with Lifetime in person was through this business coach. I just want to learn business. Well, I had found Ryan Pineda, who's a real estate guy. He's in Las Vegas. He had a pastor on there that used to be in a heavy metal band, Pastor Matty. And I was like, I'll listen to this one because I like Pastor Matty's story. I listened to his story, but I wanted to see who Ryan was. And so he started talking about stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, hey, we're gonna have a get together with all these entrepreneur people for like a 3-day event. And I was like, okay, let's do that. This will be fun. Because I'd never been to that. I've always been to fitness stuff, but I'd never been to like a spiritual retreat like that. So I go to that, and it's all entrepreneurs. So I was like, okay, this will be good. I'll learn something. So I go there, and like I did the VIP thing, and during that VIP time, I was like, okay, we're gonna pray for all of you, and there's like 80 of us. So this took a bit, but there's like we all go individually and get prayed for. So I go into this room. It was actually Ryan's office, and so I'm in there. It's like, oh, this is a cool office, and I go in there, dude. And so it's like me, another guy, and then two other guys. So like two leaders, and then two guys, VIP guys. And I go in, dude, and I'm sitting over there sharing my testimony with the guy, but then the guy behind us, he's just weeping. I'm sitting over. I was like, oh no. I was like, I'm next. Yeah, dude. So we're in there probably 45 minutes. And like halfway through, man, the other guys get done. They come over, and he's like, dude, what's wrong? And he's like, there's something in you that's just not right. And I was like, I don't know. And I think not a demon, but a spirit. And he's like, what is it? And he's like, I think it was a spirit of self hatred. That I think that has been my issue majority of my life. So from like 6 to 24, so I was like 33 at the time. He's like, well, you let's pray this thing out of you. I was like, all right, got nothing else to lose, right? Let's get it out. And so as we're about to pray it out, he's like, dude, you're gonna have some weird stuff happen. You might not be able to talk, you might not be able to do something. I was like, I can talk. I'll be fine. Well, I went to go start praying and I can't open my mouth. I physically cannot
Mm,
open my mouth. And I was like, this is weird. And I keep trying to do that, keep trying to do that, and nothing comes out. And then eventually I can open up my mouth and pray the spirit out of me. And I feel this thing come out, and I feel a lightness in my chest
hmm,
that I haven't felt before. And then as we're praying, I see the image of Jesus on the cross. Like I'm there. And dude, it's like imprinted on my head, in my brain now. Just seeing Jesus on the cross. And he comes over and he physically touches my heart. He's like, I did this for you. And just I feel a lightness that I haven't felt before. And that was 24. And yeah, 24, 25, whenever that happened. But I just literally, dude, like my depression more or less gone. Like literally like ideations of suicide. It's
hmm,
just things changed that day. And just sitting there, I'm just like, whoa, this is what God can do. And this is why God put me here. So that way I could share my story, but also tell people it's like there is redemption where we don't feel there's redemption. Well, there is salvation for the lost boys that don't feel like they have family, don't feel like they have the fathers in their life. And God showing me that He's the father I've been looking for. He has the family that He wants me to be in. Then, so like the next day, we have a thing where they're like, hey, we want leaders to lead our Bible studies. Will you stand up and do it? And I stood up. I was like, I'll do it. And luckily, at the gym, we had some guys asking to do that. And I was like, so sweet, here we are. And, I've been doing that. It'll be like, yeah, it'll be a year. So that's when it happened, 25. So it'll be about a year this June since I've been running this study. Dude, it's been life changing because it's just God's been opening up doors with that. But then, like, this, the entrepreneurial aspects, man, like, I'm not big on sharing numbers, but it's like I've been over 6 figures for 2 years in a row. And I'm working less than I ever did at Lifetime, but I'm making a bigger impact because I'm getting to actually help people in a way not only physically, mentally, emotionally, but spiritually. And as a result of that, man, life has just been so different. And then when I tell people, man, like my depression is gone.
Amen, brother.
Yeah. And, people are like, well, what did you do? And I'll tell them the story. And they're like, oh, I don't get it. And I was like, it wasn't meds, man. It was, it was God, and it was a God thing. It was one of those I've been praying for so many years. And it's one of those God was listening, but he was setting up all these other things to prepare me for that next step of actually being able to become the man I needed to be so I could share this with other people and be like, hey man, like it's going to be okay. The world's crazy right now and everything's all messed up, but it's going to be okay. And that's just kind of like that was the main journey, man. It's just like God using fitness and all these other random about ways to get me back to him and showing me he's like, hey man, don't put your faith in man. Put your faith in me, and stuff's going to take care of itself. I'm going to take care of you and your business. You're going to reach people. You're going to help people, and you're going to serve people in a way that you never. And yeah, that's most of my story.
Bro, I love it. That is an incredible journey. And I have tons of notes here, and I'm not really sure we're gonna be able to get through all of it. So there's a probably a good chance maybe, and we can talk about it later, but there's probably a good chance we may end up in a part two, just depending on how far how far down this list that we get to.
Yeah, man.
I want to Man, there's a lot of places that I wanna get to, because the first thing I wanna say is thank you for sharing that, because I know there are touch points throughout your story that are more delicate and obviously sensitive to be able to essentially relive some of that. But like you said, the Lord has he has saved you for like both literally and metaphorically, to obviously share this story for, for the audience that's out there. So thank you for doing that and being vulnerable and really honest with it. The What I'd like to do is, because there are different threads that I kind of picked up on as you were talking. So the first one, obviously the mental health battle is one of it, bodybuilding being another thread, and this essentially, and with the realization now that it was because of the spirit that had gotten into your life of self-hatred, had caused the relationship with God to obviously ebb and flow as well. So, I think what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna ask one of these follow-up questions. I'm gonna just see where it goes,
Yeah,
if you're cool with that, if you're
always. Yeah,
alright with that.
yeah, man.
And let's okay, so, because 24 is it 2014? Yeah, so 2014 seems like that seems to be like a really good intersection of where things started changing. Is that fair?
Yeah, yeah. That'd be like my prodigal son. Started my prodigal son journey, basically.
Yeah. S So here's from a broad, I'm gonna see if I can start broad and then maybe narrow it down. So before 2014, so you knew Jesus, you knew of God, you knew of the Bible. 2014 comes around, and obviously some really hard things come, and essentially just what you start questioning the church,
Yeah,
the people in church. And but then you get to this other side when you go to when you have this girlfriend that was, or ex-girlfriend that's living with you, and then you go to this seminar. The question is, what do you find is the difference between who you knew God to be before 2014 and leading to 2014, and then who you know God to be now after? Like, was there a difference somewhere in there?
yeah, 100%. Well, we'll go to so pre 2014, like 2014, before 2014, and like all that. It was, let's call it like elementary school version of like what I thought God was, who I thought God was. Like he was just the guy up in the clouds. He didn't. It's not that he didn't care, but it was just like he felt far away. And I think that's where I struggled, was because I was like, if you're supposed to be, Abba Father, why are you so far away? All this stuff gets me, but like in a good way. So if we look at the prodigal son, the father gives a son his inheritance before his father dies. So his son is being in that culture during that time. When the son asks for that, he's basically assuming that his father's dead because that's when you get your inheritance. It's after your father's died. So he's like, hey, give me what is owed to me. The son goes out and squanders it. And this is years, months, who knows, right? And he says he comes to himself. And when he comes to himself, he's like, oh my gosh, I am eating out of a pig trough. And in Jewish culture, pigs are the lowest form for them, right? So this guy's like, I am at the lowest of my lows. So I'm going to go back to my father because even my father's servants are taken care of. He's like, I will go back to my father and I'll work for you. And the reason this gets me is because it is the image of what God did for us with Christ. When the son comes back, you notice that the father goes out and runs to him. A Jewish leader in that time running is they don't do that. They don't run. They walk.
And exposing his legs, also a
Yes.
big no-no.
And he's meeting his son at the gates. Because if the son would have gotten to the gate, the son would have probably gotten stoned because that's what happens in those times with whatever. And the father is like, I have been waiting. And that's what gets me, because that's what happened to me. Because he's like, I've been waiting for you. I've been looking for you every day. And I've been waiting for you. And that is what's been so powerful for me, man. It's just like God never left me, man. He was there. He was right behind me the whole time. I just was looking away. And when I turn around and come back, he's like, there you are. Let's throw a party. And that was the realization.
And do you think that because obviously, so I'm going to ask this question from a standpoint as though if I'm not really a believer.
Yeah. And
And the thing is that I think, yeah, so let me just ask this question, and then if I have to backfill it, I will. But because that was a, what, a 10-year, 11-year journey from 2014 until 2025-ish.
so 2025 was the spiritual side, but the spirit getting spirit out. But it was 2020 is when I came back to God.
Okay,
And then
2020 when you come, okay, so a
yeah, yeah, and
6-year
then 20 yeah,
time
and then
span.
22 is when I got baptized. So I forgot to mention.
In 2022, you get baptized. Okay. So in that time span, that 6-year time span, now and I know you briefly referenced this like a couple times leading up to this. Do you believe that you were in your own way of being able to see God correctly, and so you had to go through this? You had to go
Yes.
through 6 years of just, well, literal shit before you get to this
Yeah.
out of 2020?
Yeah. And so what how I got to the realization of like how God viewed me, I got introduced. So again, Matty Montgomery, he had his band, right, for today. So I just started listening to them again. And then I was like, I really like this stuff because it was just talking about God and just how they view, like how Matty viewed God and how and I was like, okay, I want to listen to sermons again. And then I found a sermon with Matty, and then he used to be um hold evangelical rallies, and he had a pastor on there named Pastor Damon Thompson. And that's where I started learning about who God was. God as a father, God as a loving father, as a father who cared about me, God who saw me as a beloved son, and he wanted me right there next to him. He wanted like just all this stuff. And it's called beloved identity, is what Pastor Damon calls it. And that's when I started changing, because I was like, I didn't know who I was. I didn't have an identity. I didn't like hearing my name because of how it was used, with the ex-girlfriends and stuff, and just all the negative stuff that came out of it. And when I realized that I was trying to find who I was and how I saw myself and all these things that weren't true, but hearing other people saying like, "Hey, you're a good person, you're smart," all this and that, I'm still not believing it. But then it was like, what does God say? And that was the thing, is like, for so people who aren't believers, it's if you're having these same questions, it's like, who am I? Why am I here? And it was because God created you because he wanted to have these face to face interactions with you, spend time with you, to love on you, and just to be like, this is my son, who I am well pleased. Right. It was just like, okay, I get it now. It's not the religion side, because that's why I walked away from, was the religion. I wanted to have my relationship with my father. I wanted to have my relationship with someone who cares about me regardless if I mess up. I want to have a relationship with this person that, he's supposed to know everything about me, all this and that. And I was like, what does that actually look like? And just hearing this pastor, the reason I like Pastor Damon, he's all tatted up. Back in the day, he had dreadlocks, and he's just talking about an actual relationship like he does with his wife, and just talking about how you could hear like just the intimate moments that he shares that he has with God, and just how things are with him and God. I was like, I want that. I want to feel like that. I don't want to feel these things that I feel about me inside, because they're not true, right? Like, I'm not dumb. I'm not this. I have value. People care about me. Um, and that was just what I needed to hear, man, and just more. It's one of those, like, when you also I'm a nerd, and that's why I'm good at my job, is because I study and I learn. But it's like Pastor Damon, he's got PhD, I think at least one, if not two, and he just how he breaks stuff down. He talks about like the Greek and Hebrew, and the one thing that got me was, I think it's pros yokomai. Don't quote me on that, but it was like face to face is what is, so face to face interaction with God. And I was like, that's what I want. I want to be able to talk to God. I don't want to have to just like go to church and check the box and go get those feels. Like, no, I want to see God. I want to experience God. I want to see the sick healed, the dead raised. It's like, if it happened back then, it's going to happen now. So we hear about it happening over in third world countries. I want to see that here happen in America. And I got to see that when I was out at that conference, man. My story is just a little one. We had a woman saved from a demon, and I have it recorded on my phone. And I wasn't even recording that. I was recording a opening for someone's sermon. You just hear this lady start blood curdling scream like she's eating stat.
Mm.
And the speaker, he's like, "Yep, that one was getting saved right now." And I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, dude, it was intense. Like, back up, hair back, neck, standing up. And I was like, "Okay, this is real. This is the stuff that's real." And just having those types of interactions, man, that's what I've been looking for. Not just, the in the sense of like, okay, I read my Bible, I said my prayers. It's not just that, not the checklists, not the boxes, not like holier than thou stuff. It's like an actual relationship with someone that it's deeper and deeper, and discover more things about them that you're like, oh, this is different. I didn't know this about you. Like, oh, I knew you like painting, but I didn't know like why you like painting, or just those things that
Mhm.
the longer you know someone, the more deeply, intimately you know them. And yeah, I'd say that's the thing. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, yeah, definitely does. Well, Cole, I think what I'd like to do is definitely have a part 2 with you, just because I think there's other things that we can dig deeper in, and it's wild listening to you talk and sharing your experience. Yeah, both you and I, our experiences are pretty similar, different circumstances and situations, but I think some of the overall overarching things are pretty similar. What I'd like to close with, I'm also going to do, I'd like to change things up, because knowing that there's a part 2, I'm actually not going to ask you to close out with the final question. But what I would like to do is get your thought on something, and we'll close out that way. And then part 2, we can pick up,
Yeah,
if that's cool.
definitely.
Your journey with identity,
Mhm.
and this is what I'd like to get your thought on. I want to share my experience, and then would like you to share your thoughts on it. So the what I've been learning for probably the last year and a half now, and I know the audience members have heard me talk about this probably ad nauseum, but I'm still going to talk about it because I still think it's a game changer. Because even guys at the gym, I'm still telling them about. I'm also doing my best to share this with them as well. And so what I've been learning is that, and what happened with you is that, and I don't mean to oversimplify your journey or process, but for time's sake and whatnot, to just kind of get it to the irreducible minimums. It was an exchange process of taking what the world has told us, what we
Hmm.
believed about ourselves and what other people have told us, and exchanging that with Jesus for him to give us a new identity that he has always called us and has known
Hmm.
us by.
Yep.
And because of that process, it now has allowed me to view the world a lot differently now, because before it was, this is how the world and family and coworkers and whatnot have always seen me, versus what, just like what you were saying, this is how God sees me. And that question that you had asked yourself, like, well, what do you say about me? Right. I think that is such a pivotal and key question that I think even believers, let alone non believers, are missing. Right. And so I would like to know what your thoughts on about that taking what the world has told us, exchanging it, new identity.
Yeah. I think it starts when we're kids, right? Because of what TV says, news, all that. And especially with what we see younger men going through now, they're like, who am I? And men aren't valued in the way that we used to be, because now provision and all that other stuff is taken care of in that sense, right? Security's there, all these different things. So I had to unlearn these negative things that were told to me. And God put people in my life, whether people of faith or not, and talking me up. And when you, and fellas, ladies, whoever, when you start hearing people talking about you in a way that matches how you feel internally in the positive, that's when you're like, okay, I need to listen to that. And I need to go into that. And that's where God started breaking those things down. So let's look at it as a refining process, like if we're like refining gold, and you got to get all the blemishes out. And that's what it was. It was getting all these blemishes out, because when we see blemishes as people, that's what we focus on, not the whole. And that's what God had to remove, was all these little blemishes that I had believed and I held on to. And when I started doing that, that's when I was starting to like, well, you know what? All the things that have been said about me that are true, they're true in the sense of like they're my isness, my core, who I am. And as a result, that's when I could start to dig deeper into that and grab onto that and just starting throwing away these little pieces of me that weren't true. And then digging deeper into how God sees me and saw me, and just really cementing like, um, so my self-talk, when you're having bad days, and I encourage people, say this to yourself: I know who I am, and I know where the F I'm going. So that's kind of what part of my mantra has been lately, is just like, God already made me for who I am, loves me as much as he ever will. And he's going to keep making me better and better for stuff that he needs me to do. And I just need to just believe it. And then I'd say the other thing that was like true is like, I had people tell me I was worthless and blah, 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 and I wasn't good enough as a job from the job aspect. But then when I went independent, I didn't have those people in my ear, and I built a successful business, even though I didn't look the way people say personal trainers are supposed to look. And so I rebuilt my business first before as I'm getting back into shape again to do bodybuilding again. Now I'm like, I built this thing, even though I didn't look the way that the world says I have to look, but I kept who I was first. And as a result, I was able to build my business back, and if not better than what it's ever been. And that way, now I'm able to steward it in a way where it's not going to be about my body. It's going to be about me serving my people.
Absolutely. That's a perfect place to end. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Coach Cole Fritz. I will have information. Cole, where do you hang out most online? I will ask you that question.
Coach Cole Fritz on Instagram. And that's about it.
Make sure you guys stop by, check out his page. We are definitely going to do a follow up to this, just because I have way more questions, and I find his story fascinating. If you guys are in Denver, you can find myself and Coach Cole at Rocky Mountain Flex Fitness, and you'll have all the information. You guys know how to reach me, and check out the show notes, so that way you can check out Cole's page as well, and you can reach out to him again if you're in Denver. But we also do online stuff, so make sure that you guys can check us out there as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Coach Steve, as always, telling you, never conform.